Okay, hi everyone. Once again, my name is Lucia. Um, I appreciate you all coming to this talk today. The talk is titled Journey to the Soul. The reason I called it that is I'm going to share my history of journeying to my soul and coming to a place of actualizing or actualization. Um, and just to give a brief introduction, I am a telepathic medium, which basically just means that I, like a psychic, can see people's past, present, and future, as well as past lives, and connect to loved ones that have um, passed away or crossed over to the other side in spirit. And I can bring through messages of peace, healing, and closure, as well as guidance. I can connect to spirit guides, masters, angels, things like that, and make connections and bring through messages of guidance. And as part of my work, I am also what's called a white fire healer. And what white fire healing is a ancient healing modality that I was taught by a creator several years back that helps me to heal people on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. It's an energy healing modality that I practiced in former lifetimes, but was reintroduced in this lifetime for that purpose. Um, and essentially the way it works is I would have a session with somebody, say if we were in person, I would have them lie down on the table and administer the hands-on energy healing by hovering my hands over their body and allowing the energy to channel and flow through my hands in order to heal or help to heal. And it doesn't have to be in person either. I do distance sessions for people as well where we're not physically in the same location, but the energy is sent. So that's a little bit about what I do. I'm also a psychic development teacher, which means that I help people. I believe that everybody has intuition. Everybody has kind of a sixth sense, and at times it's stronger than others, and some people have it stronger than others as well. But it can always be developed and taken to the next level, through exercises, through meditation, through different techniques. So that's what I do. I also recently just got put onto a TV show. I have a TV show that's airing December 1st locally here in Richmond, December 8th, and December 15th. And it's on Comcast Channel 95 and Verizon Channel 36. And the show is called To the Light with Lucia. And essentially the show is based on education, healing, and enlightenment. And there's several different elements throughout the show, or segments throughout the show, highlighting different aspects of healing, education, or enlightenment. And I also do an interview with a local, what I call light worker, every episode, where I interview somebody within the community that is sharing their light in one capacity or another, in order to help people to grow, heal, or evolve, whatever that might look like. And then I do readings live on air as well for the show. So if anybody wants to call in and get a reading, that would be the time to do it. So that's a little bit about me. I'm also a musician. I play music. I'm in a local band, and I do lead vocals for them. We're called Chiefs of All Tribes, and that's essentially what I do, for work and such. So, but today I'm here to talk about, a journey to the soul is what this talk is titled. And I basically just wanted to share kind of my journey to the soul and highlight that and share that and answer any questions that anybody might have on that, as well as sharing tools and techniques for you all to journey to the soul, your own soul, and on your path further. And I know that we're all here at this wonderful meditation center, and everybody's on their spiritual path as is. So maybe this will just be a little bit of an enhancement today. So just getting started, a brief history about me. I was actually born in Salzbach, Rosenberg, Germany. My father was in the military, so I was born in Germany. I moved to Pennsylvania when I was about 3, and moved to Richmond, Virginia when I was 5, and I've lived here ever since. So my journey started out when I was a child, a very small child. When I was a child, it started with my dreams. When I was young, maybe 5, 6 years old, up until about age 8, 9, I would have dreams every night of an indigenous man, a Native American being, And he was like a ninja. He would go around fighting people in these very bloody, very vivid battles every night. The same thing. He would go and fight in these battles, and they were so vivid and so real and so awe-inspiring. Put me in awe every night that I saw these dreams. And I would feel like I was right there with this being that I was seeing in these dreams. So I would wake up from these dreams and have conversations with this being that I was dreaming about, this native indigenous man that I was dreaming about. And I was blown away by what he would tell me. You know, these really awesome stories about what it was like being there. And these dreams would happen every night. There were recurring dreams that would happen every night. And so I'd wake up, have conversations with this individual, then I'd go to school, and I would draw this character in my notebooks, and I would think about him all throughout the day, not knowing quite what to make of it, but knowing that he was my friend and he was with me. So the dreams persisted, and I started having more dreams where he would be walking through the forest, and I would feel the dirt under my feet that he was walking under or on. I would feel the air on my skin as if I was right there in that experience. I would see the very lush, rich green color of the trees and of the leaves and the foliage that was there. And it would inspire me, and it was like watching a high definition film. Has anybody here seen Life of Pi?
Yep.
So it was like being in Life of Pi. Like, that's how vivid it was. It was incredible. And I would wake up from these dreams and I would draw this character everywhere. Once again, you know, the dream started shifting a little bit. You know, he would walk through the forest, and then the final dream that I had of him was him standing against the backdrop of what looked like the universe without any stars. I saw him in all of his regalia, his bracelets, his hair, his braids, the shells that he was wearing, the paint. Everything was very, very vivid, very, very clear. And I heard in this omnipotent voice, in God's voice in this dream, Tecumseh, Tecumseh, my son, I have you. And I was blown away. I mean, I was a little kid, you know, a young male, didn't know what to make of this, but was just blown away. And I would wake up and draw the character again, but I started writing the word Tecumseh next to it. And I was so inspired by these dreams and what I was seeing and these conversations that I'd be having with this being that I enrolled in a martial arts class and ended up getting my black belt in about 4 or 5 years. But that's how it started. I would tell my parents about these dreams, and they would just shoo it under the rug and say, "Oh, those are just dreams. Don't think anything of it. Don't look into it. Just let it go." But I knew it was more than that. So then my dreams shifted. That was the last dream that I had of him. I started dreaming about the future every night. I would go to sleep and dream about the future, about my personal future. And I would wake up the next day, and what I dreamt about would either come to pass the next day, within the next couple of days, or within the next couple of weeks. And that persisted and would happen every night, every single night. And that's when I knew something was going on that was different. I perceived that. And when those dreams continued, I started getting messages from the frequency known as the Holy Spirit. I started getting messages about past lives and things like that. And I didn't know what to make of this. I was just a kid. And it seemed like, everything was opening up so tremendously and so beautifully, but I didn't know what to make of it. I couldn't really talk to my friends about it because they weren't seeing and experiencing the same things. My parents were telling me not to think anything of it, so I very much so kept it to myself and kind of suppressed it. I tried to suppress it as much as possible. And as I grew older, I started, going through, my early teenage years and realizing that I still had these abilities, but I just kept them really suppressed, and not looking into it too much. So things started shifting, things started changing when I was 17. When I was 17, I started undergoing a spiritual awakening. and had a Kundalini activation. Does anybody here know what Kundalini is? Anybody familiar with Kundalini? Okay. So I started to become a little bit more conscious. I started to see things between the lines. I started paying attention to words, the way people spoke. I started listening for the true meaning of what people were saying. And I started looking into etymology, or the history of word structures, because I realized that words themselves carried a vibration. And the way the word was shaped, or the way the word was spelled, changed the vibration and the meaning of what was being shared. And I started noticing this around age 17, and so I started really looking into that and really started becoming more and more conscious. Well then, I had a history teacher, same age, 17, in high school. This history teacher was different as well. He would do a lot of lessons, and in his lessons he would draw. He would draw the lesson plan ahead of time, but it was channeled drawings, meaning that he would connect to his spirit guides, the beings that we all have around us, whether they're our loved ones that have passed on, our ancestors, people that we've lived with in former lifetimes that are acting as spiritual guidance to us, in spirit. And he would draw these amazing, just channeled drawings of our lessons, and we had conversations about it, and it was really interesting, and I just felt it was the right time to be exposed to something like that. And he started talking about dreams. One day in class, he started talking about dreams. Of all things in history in Virginia, I would not expect a history teacher to be talking about dreams. But he started talking about dreams and how every ancient culture revered dreams as messages from the divine. In their different rites, in their different cultures, doesn't matter what the culture is, they view dreams as messages from the divine. So he started talking about indigenous culture, native culture, Native American culture. And he started talking about dream symbolism. And he started sharing what horses symbolically meant, and I think it was like the Lakota tribe. And as soon as he started talking about that, the word Tecumseh popped back into my head that I was dreaming about when I was young, when I was a small boy. And I knew that there was something to that, but I didn't know what it was. I knew that there was something to it. So I was eager to find out what that was. So I wrote the word down so I wouldn't forget it, even though it was lodged in my mind after remembering it. And I went home that day, and I looked on Google, and I typed in the word Tecumseh. Well, it turns out Tecumseh was a real person. He was from the Shawnee tribe, an indigenous tribe, and he was a Native American war chief and prophet. So I was blown away at this. I was absolutely blown away that this person that I was dreaming about was a real person that lived at one point. It was a very famous Indian, very famous, or I should say native, very famous native, and he was a very powerful man, and I felt such a strong connection to him just from Googling him. And so being 17, kind of going through this awakening, having this Kundalini activation going on, I researched him as much as I could, at least online. So I found out a lot about him. I found out that, like I said, he's from the Shawnee tribe. He was a war chief, and he had prophetic ability as well. I didn't know what to make of this. I was intrigued. I was blown away. I was becoming more conscious. I was becoming more aware. But what do I make of this person that I dreamt about that is a real person? So I did as much research as I could online. And then I felt like the trail kind of went cold because I found out as much as I could from what I could research online. Well, I started to wake up even more and more. I started becoming more spiritually aware of what was going on within me and what was going on around me. And the Kundalini energy started rising so much within my being that I started to see reality differently. The confines of my reality broke down. Everything that I thought I knew about myself I started to let go of. Everything that I thought I knew about the outside world, I started to let go of. And it was like I was coming to a clean slate of who I was and who I knew myself to be. I started having visions, very, very intense visions, and started auditorily hearing messages from loved ones. But I didn't know what to make of that. I had no real source of guidance. I had no teacher, no guru to seek. And I was experiencing this all on my own and kind of spent a lot of time alone trying to make sense of the visions and the messages. And like I said, the confines of my reality were breaking down. My friends started noticing a shift in my thinking patterns as well, my family. And I ended up having to spend as much time as I could alone so that I could make sense of what was going on. And I started to, and at that time I actually had a bend in my back, a small bend in my back, and so I was kind of slightly hunched over. And I talked to my best friend Michael about it, and he was like, you just got to stretch or, do what you can, you can fix this. So I was like, yeah, but this is really bothering me, like more so than it should, I feel. But at this time, I was really seeking to perfect myself, seeking to become whole, very whole, and discover who I was further, than the mundane day-to-day life that I was being taught in Western society, in school, in home, in the church, in different places. And so I was really seeking to perfect myself and become whole. So I tried meditating. It was positive, but it didn't help fully for correcting the bend in my back, as well as prayer. Positive, but it didn't completely help. And tried yoga. Positive, but it didn't completely help. Now granted, I didn't stick with these things like devoutly. It was just trial and error here and there. And I tried different things, but nothing was really helping. And then I had a mystical experience where I went camping with some friends on this private mountain. And as soon as I got out of the car, my spine corrected itself. And the posture became perfect, and the energy was just radiating all around me. And my friends were like looking at me like, yo, what's going on, man? Like, this is wild. And we ended up having a very, very spiritual experience on the mountain. And we talked, we shared information, and we taught a lot of the spiritual insights that I was receiving, and they were like really open and receptive to it. And were like, this is really good stuff. I really appreciate you sharing this. And we were really in tune with it, and it was a very powerful, very moving experience. Well, we were there for about 2-3 days, and then when we left, my spine went back to the curvature that it was before, and I was like, that is so bizarre. Like, what does this mean? But I knew that there was a lot of universal energy that was at play in that experience. Still didn't know what to make of any of this though. Well, then one day, it was spring, several years ago, spring, I went to a church with my father. My father went up to say a prayer. He wasn't praying for me, but as soon as he said the prayer, or started to say the prayer, I felt this jolt of electricity go up my spine. And the same Kundalini energy that I'd been feeling not that long before, maybe a year before, I felt, but I didn't know it was called Kundalini at that time. I didn't know what it was. My spine corrected itself once again, and my posture became perfect. And it blew me away. I was so intrigued, and it didn't stop. It stayed aligned. And I left, and I called my friend. I was like, yo, you got to see this, man. Like, it corrected itself again. He's like, really? I was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, it looks like it. I was like, okay. At that point, I really found that, I think I was 18, 19 at that time. I found that I really wanted to find out as much as I could about healing, energy healing, ways to heal the body, mind, and spirit without Western medical practice. And I started reading online about different ways that people healed and healing and things like that. And I found out about Reiki. Has anybody here heard of Reiki before? Mm-hmm. Awesome. I found out about Reiki. And I was reading about it, and I was like, this is really interesting. This is ancient Japanese hands-on energy healing modality that people administer through their hands, through touch, that they use to help heal people of different ailments. And I was like, this is really awesome. Like, I had my own healing experience. Like, I think I might want to learn something like this. So I was still kind of going through this awakening. Very, very clean, very, very clear mind, and very, very clean slate of where I was internally. Very cleansed. And I went to Barnes & Noble maybe 3 or 4 days after I was reading online about Reiki. And I saw a woman standing by a bookshelf. And something told me, go up and talk to her. Just go up and talk to her. So I just followed that inclination. I went up and I talked to her and I introduced myself. Told her who I was. Told her I didn't know why I was talking to her. But something told me I needed to talk to her. She was like, oh, that's very nice. You know, I believe that there's no such thing as coincidence. And she went on to introduce herself, and she let me know that she was a Reiki practitioner. And so I was like, oh, that's why I'm supposed to talk to you. So I told her about the healing experience that I had, and told her that I was interested in learning Reiki. And she told me, well, I'm not a Reiki master, so I can't teach you. I'm a Reiki practitioner. But I know of a great Reiki master that can teach you. I'll give you his information. So she gave me his information. I called him the very next day. And what he tells me is, well, you're in luck. I teach this class once a year and I'm teaching it in a couple of weeks. So I was like, wow, just so happens to be working out. So I go to his class and we're learning the how it operates, the history, and kind of getting attuned to the modality. And it comes time in the class to actually start practicing on a partner. And he explains to us that with Reiki, generally there's 3 different levels of intuition as far as working on somebody's physical being, or spiritual, or emotional, or mental. Now when you're working on them, your intuition can pick up on three different levels. The first level is when you're scanning over their body, putting your hands over their body and kind of going over their body to sense if there's any imbalances or things like that within the body. The first level is you might just kind of get a sense that there's an imbalance. Say it's over the heart. There's an imbalance over the heart. And you just kind of get a sense in your hands that you just, something feels like there could be something going on there. So I was like, okay. He explained that the second level is that you'll scan over a person's body with your hands. You'll hover over their body with your hands to sense if there's any imbalances, and you may feel a pain in your hands or going up your arms where there's an imbalance within their body, say it's their heart. I said, okay, probably none of this will probably even happen for me. Then he explained the third level is when you scan over somebody's body with your hands, and you may sense that there's an imbalance, you may feel the pain, but you may also just know exactly what's going on in their body and what's actually taking place, and start to be able to work on it. Like, you'll know exactly what's going on. He said, you'll fall somewhere within those three levels. So I said, okay. So we get started, and I'm working on my partner. We're doing like 5-minute sessions on each other. And I scanned over her body, and as soon as I got to her feet, I just knew I needed to go to her heart. So I scanned over the rest of her body just to make sure. So I went to her heart, and I started feeling pain in my hands. And I felt that she was dealing with a lot of heartache, sorrow, and anxiety in her heart. And I knew that it was stemming from a divorce that was taking place. And I just knew this, but I didn't know how I knew it. I didn't know what to do with it. Just knew it. And after those couple of minutes of working on her, she was like, so what'd you feel? Or did you feel anything? And I just told her, well, I was inclined to stop at your heart. I felt that you were dealing with heartache, sorrow, and anxiety. I felt that it was surrounding a divorce. And her face went white. She could not believe that information was ascertained just by like being over her heart. And she was like, all of that is true. Like, all of that is absolutely true. And so after we worked on our partner, she switched with me. The rest of the group did their work. We got back in a circle. And our teacher said, okay, who wants to share their experiences? my partner shot her hand up and said, "You need to hear about what happened." And so she shared the story about what I picked up on, and everybody's like, "Wow, that's really interesting." And there's one woman who was already a Reiki master, but was going back to this level 1 Reiki certification class, basically just to get a refresher, just to get a tune-up. And she looked at me and she stopped and she was like, "You're going to be a full-blown psychic medium." And I was just like, no, but okay. And my Reiki teacher just looked at me and winked and said, "You better believe her." And so I was like, all right, I'll take it with a grain of salt. This is, their opinion, whatnot. Who am I to deny this? But, I don't know at the same time. So I had a break in the class. We had a break in the class where we were getting tea and having snacks and things like that. And my Reiki teacher approached me. And he said, "So why are you deciding to take Reiki? Why are you learning Reiki?" And I told him about the healing experience that I had. He just smiled and nodded. And I told him how it started with the dreams that I had of the indigenous man named Tecumseh. And he just stopped me as I was talking, put his hand up, smiled, and said, "That's because you're his brother reincarnated, and he's your spirit guide." And I was blown away. There's times, and I'm getting chills now just thinking about it. There's times in our life where we hear something, we just know it's true. It just resonates. And when he said that to me, I felt like an earthquake rattled my being. And I knew it was true, but I didn't know what to do with it. So I was like, wow, that is incredible. Are you sure? He's like, "I'm positive." So I'm like, okay. One thing's for certain, I really need to research Tecumseh now. I need to research reincarnation because I didn't discount it, but I didn't know much about reincarnation at the time. So we go through the rest of the class, and it was good. Learned, got my level 1 Reiki certification, and I'm pretty happy because now I can start, practicing on myself the healing work, and I've got a lead again. I've got a lead on where I can go with this Tecumseh character that I was dreaming about. So I go back to Barnes & Noble, and I see if they have any books on Tecumseh. They did, but they only had a children's book in the store. So they said, "Well, we can order one because we've got a lot, in our warehouses." So I was like, okay. So the woman looked at the screen and said, "Well, this one seems to have the best reviews, so we'll order this one." I was like, "Okay, do you have any books on reincarnation?" She said, "Well, we don't have any in stock, but in our warehouse we do." And so there was a book on reincarnation by a psychic named Edgar Casey, who lived in Virginia Beach in the early 1900s, and very, 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 very powerful psychic. So I ordered both books. I get a phone call maybe 4 or 5 days later saying that my books were ready. So I was like, okay. The next day, I went in to pick up my books. I went to the front desk. And the clerk looks at me, and he says, "Are you Steve Williams?" Because at the time I was going by the name Steve. Changed my name to Lucia this past summer. I said, "Yes." "Why?" And he's like, "Oh, this book, Tecumseh, A Life, I read this 12 years ago when it first came out." And so I'm like, all right, I can't deny these signs. What does this mean? So he goes on to tell me how the book is the best written book that he's read to date as far as the documentation of historical events goes, and that it was a very, very good read. So I said, okay, awesome. And he asked me, "Well, why are you reading this book?" And I told him nothing other than the dreams that I had of him when I was a child. Just the dreams and how I enrolled in martial arts because, the dreams inspired me to do so. Very nonchalantly, this isn't a spiritual man by any stretch of the imagination. Very nonchalantly, he just puts his chin on his hand, puts his elbow on the desk, and says, "Well, maybe you're his brother reincarnated." And so, at that point, I just kind of just threw my head back. I was like, all right, look, man, I don't know you, but I gotta tell you, I literally just learned Reiki, not that long ago, and my Reiki teacher happens to have intuitive abilities, and he told me the exact same thing. And he was like, "Well, I've never met somebody, that thought they were reincarnated before, but it's probably true." And so I was like, okay. So I went home, And I started to read the book on reincarnation first. And I felt that I had a pretty good grasp and understanding of reincarnation. It really resonated with me. I believed it. And I started to remember the messages that I was getting as a kid about reincarnation. And so I was like, okay, this is really making sense. And after that, I started to read the book Tecumseh, A Life. And as soon as I started reading it, the whole thing just resonated with me so deeply. I felt such a strong connection. And I didn't know what to make of it, but I was so blown away at it that I just kept reading and reading and reading and reading and finished the book. And I was like, wow, I believe it to be true, but I don't know. And I was still kind of awakening, still becoming more conscious, still becoming more aware. And I finished it. I called my friend, my best friend Mike, and I was like, Mike, I've learned Reiki and everything. I've been practicing on myself. Can I try practicing on you? And he had seen me go through all these spiritual changes that I've been going through. And he was a pretty spiritual individual himself, opening up, not living a super spiritual lifestyle, but he was a spiritual individual. And I practiced on him, and same result as when I worked with the woman. I was able to pick up on exactly what was going on with him. And he was like, wow, that's really cool. So from there, I decided that, I want to see somebody that can connect me to Tecumseh, the spirit. If I am his brother reincarnated, if he is my spirit guide, then surely I can see like a medium that would be able to connect me to him. And I was thinking, what's the use in trying? It couldn't hurt anything per se. Might be disappointed if mediums don't exist and if it doesn't this doesn't work. But I ended up calling a medium and went and saw her. And she told me not to tell her anything. So I was like, okay, that kind of makes things a little bit more real. And she first connected me with my grandmother who had passed away, who I did not expect. I didn't know what to expect. My grandmother came through and presented all these messages, and it was all factual, and it was pretty good. So I was pretty blown away. And then next, after she came through, my best friend, who happens to be in a coma, came through, and I didn't realize that could happen. But the way that works is, when you're in a coma, it's like being asleep, and your astral body or your spirit can project out of your body and go through the spiritual realm with no problem. So he had done that, and he came through and brought through all this information. I was like blown away. And lastly, Tecumseh came through, and as soon as he came through, I began to see him with my eyes. I began to see him. And I felt his energy, and it felt like my energy, and I realized that he'd been with me my entire life. And she brought through all this information about his life and things like that, and it was all accurate. And so she's like, well, do you want me to ask him any questions on behalf of you? And I said, yes. Ask him if I'm his brother reincarnated, and ask him if he is my spirit guide. And as soon as I asked that question, I had this feeling of like an earthquake going through my being and rattling my being, and I knew what the answer was. I knew it was yes. At that moment, I was convinced. But she went ahead and responded, and she said, well, he's saying yes, but he's saying that he was also your father. I don't really understand that. And I went on to tell her, well, in the book that I read on him, the book said that Tecumseh raised his brother as a father because their father died in war. And Tecumseh had a dream about his father dying the night before his father died, and woke up and told his mom about it, and his mom told him it was just a dream. And ever since that point, he had been having dreams about the future. And so I was like, wow, this is all just validation. It's all coming together. It's very interesting. And she went on to tell me, well, he's also telling me that you can do this too. He's telling me that you're a medium and that you have healing abilities that are latent within you. And you have this shamanic-like work or shaman-like work where you can help to heal people using spiritual energy. And I said, that's interesting. Okay. Well, I did just learn Reiki, and she said, no, that's not it. So I said, okay, well, how do I tap back into this mediumship? How do I tap back into this spiritual work? And she went on to explain that I was doing it as a child and had done it before, and that it would be simple as just opening up to it. And so I said, okay. I went home, told my friend Mike, my best friend has been seeing me go through all these changes that I've been practicing on. And I told him about the experience. He was like, that's pretty interesting. I said, Mike, let me do a reading on you. And he's like, man, get that freaky stuff out of here. I'm like, no, seriously, let me do a reading on you. And he said, all right. So I do a reading on him. And I connected to, I think, like 4 of his loved ones that had crossed over. Never done that before. And he knew 2 of them. The other 2, he was very young when they passed away. And so a lot of the information he could validate, but some of it he was like, well, how do we know that this is legit? How can we test this? And so his grandmother who had crossed over said, well, ask his father if his father's favorite meal was broccoli and cheese growing up. And if I had a stack of magazines that was abnormally large in the bathroom next to the sink. And so I was like, okay. So I told him that. And he said, all right, I guess I'll ask my dad, but it's going to be weird asking him that question. I want to figure out some sly, slick kind of way to ask that without saying, hey, Lucia talks to dead people. So he gives me that was like at 6, 7 p.m. at night. He gives me a call back at 11 p.m. that night. I pick up, I'm like, Mike, what's going on? Kind of silent, doesn't say anything. Mike, you there? Mike. Lucia, I don't think we can be friends. I was like, why is that, man? He's like, well, I asked my dad about that, and it was all accurate. And so I was like, well, that's really good. That's good to know. I guess there's something here. He's like, yeah. I'm like, what? He's just like, I don't know, man. I'm like, what? He's like, all right, like, I just don't know if we can be friends. I'm like, come on, man. This is normal spiritual practice. The ancients were doing this. A lot of people today have these abilities. He's like, all right, well, I guess. And so I was like, okay. I saw him a couple of days after that, and he was like, you know what? I think you should probably do this. Like, you should do this for other people. This could really help people. And so I said, okay. And I tried it for myself, and I connected to my grandmother. And she was giving me messages, and it was so clear and right there. I was like, wow, this is really awesome. Like, I don't know what to do with this, besides maybe help people with it. So before I started helping other people with it, I was like, you know what? Maybe I could see another medium, and that will solidify it for me. If another medium says the same things without me telling them what this other medium said, then at that point I'll believe that I'm this guy's brother reincarnated and that he's my spirit guide. I was still kind of skeptical, even though I was having all these experiences happen. So I call up another medium. I sit down with him, and he says to me, don't tell me anything. I just want to go ahead and get started. So I was like, okay, this could be real. First thing he says to me is the person you're trying to connect with a Native American? And I was like, all right. If I was going to this guy, I'd expect him to say, is it your mother, your sister, your brother, your father? Something very normal, not innate, something very, very like close to you, close linked, familial-wise, family-wise. And I was like, yes, that's true. And I was like, okay. And he starts describing him, and I start seeing this being again, and I feel the energy, and it's all valid. And he shares a lot of the same things with me that this other medium shared. And so I was like, okay. And at the end of it, he shares, I'm seeing the wings of an eagle, and this is something that another medium shared as well, the other medium. And he was like, I think, some type of being or bird might be your spirit animal that's either an eagle or looks like an eagle. So, it's interesting, the other medium said the same thing. Then he goes on to say, you have healing abilities and you're a medium. And I'm like, okay, this is what I was looking for. So you just confirmed all of this for me. I think I'm going to do this work. Good for you, man. He says, good for you. So I was like, okay. So after that, I opened up and I do a session for another friend, and it was all accurate, it was all valid, everything was spot on. And they say you should be confident in yourself. You should go ahead and start doing this for other people. So then I go to a psychic festival and I volunteer my services. And people were having life-changing experiences, where they're getting information about their future or they're connecting to loved ones that have crossed over. And it was very powerful. It was very moving for me, and I decided that this was the work that I wanted to do. And I opened up to it, and I started doing it from there, and I started practicing Reiki, and that's kind of how I got started. Well, I still went through another phase of the awakening, the Kundalini activation, and once again, the confines of my reality started to break. I started seeing things even more differently, or more clearly, and I started becoming hyper-conscious, hyper-aware of myself, of spiritual energies, of other people's energies, and I was lying down on my back, on my bed, and I had my hands behind my head, and then all of a sudden, this immense energy just started channeling or pouring out of my hands and filled my entire being, filled my entire body. And I was put at ease, I was completely calm, and no anxiety, no stress, no worry, no doubt, no fear, nothing. And I just felt so at ease and so good. And I could just feel this energy just pouring through my body. And these angels showed up, and they were like, this is a healing modality that you've been gifted. Use it to help heal people. It's going to evolve over time and to help heal people with it. So I was like, okay. I don't know what to make of this, but the energy stopped flowing. I called my friend Mike. I was like, Mike. He was like, what now, man? What now? And I told him about the experience, and I asked him if I could practice on him. And he's like, all right, everything else has seemed to be okay, so we'll try this. And I did a session with him, and he was really, really, really blown away by it. And he was like, this is probably one of the more powerful things I've experienced. I think you should do this. So I was like, okay. So I started practicing at other events, spiritual events, where I practiced the healing modality that I started calling, because I was guided to, white fire healing. And it was getting really good results. A lot of people were saying really positive things about it, and I started my practice, and I started doing readings for people as well, and that's kind of how I got started. And I've met a lot of people since then. I've written a book. It's a book of wisdom called The Wise Soul, and I wrote that book basically just the insights and wisdom that I gained throughout this life and former lifetimes as a kind of a guidebook to share positivity and wisdom. And I've been blessed with all kinds of opportunities to do readings for people and help heal people here in Virginia and around the world as well. I teach psychic development now as well. I teach people how to tap into their own intuitive abilities. I teach people, how to better themselves, spiritually. This is the work that I do predominantly, for other people. So that's kind of just a brief little, not really brief, but the history of how I kind of journeyed to my soul and how I kind of discovered myself. And since then, I've become a resource therapist for a group called the Spiritual Emergence Network. And what they do, they're based in Canada, and they help to counsel people that are going through Kundalini crisis or Kundalini activation and don't quite know what to make of it and want something other than a Western perspective, something that helps to guide and facilitate healing. So I've been doing that for about 2 years with them, and doing this kind of work. So that's kind of how I got started and how I've continued. So I kind of also wanted to share how you all as well can further tap into your discovery and evolve further. So there's a few different ways that I can just share briefly that explains ways that you can discover who you are and actualize, because self-actualization and love are the two of the greatest things that we can accomplish in life. Those are two of the greatest accomplishments that we can have. And really, they're intertwined, because once we do self-actualize, we realize that at our core we are love, and love is the principle for life. So the first technique that I like to share is journaling. Journaling is oftentimes overlooked and underrated and underappreciated. But journaling is one of the number one ways to discover who we are. What I always recommend to clients that I see is get a journal that you dedicate specifically to yourself, to your evolution and unfoldment. And just write in it every day, or whenever you feel inclined, even if it's multiple times a day, but at least once a day. Just write in it. Write your thoughts down. It doesn't have to be in a particular order. It doesn't have to be organized at all. Just write your thoughts down and get all that out. And what happens when you're doing that is you're becoming tuned into your own spirit, your own mind, once again, and getting into some of the subconscious things that are going on within your mind that you might not even realize that are below the surface level of what you see and what you project. And just allow yourself to do that every day. And keep up with it. And when you fill that one up, keep going. And what it does is it's like the clearing meditation. What it does is it clears out a lot of the gunk that's in the subconscious mind. And it allows you to free yourself from chains and from bonds that may still be affecting us on a level that we're not even really realizing. So that's a very powerful technique. So journaling. The second technique is meditation, one that I know everybody here is very familiar with. Meditate. There's so many different ways to do that, but meditate. Doesn't matter whatever way resonates with you, there's so many different ways to meditate. I like coming to this center and meditating. That's a very powerful way. I also like sitting and just stilling the mind and asking your spirit guides. This is a good meditation. Sitting and stilling your mind and asking your spirit guides and your ancestors that are around you to give you guidance, to help you to know what it is that you're supposed to be doing and when, and to help facilitate changes within your life. So sitting quietly and doing that, and just spending time doing that and allowing for them to come forward and be present. And when you do, over time, you may begin to start hearing them or seeing them or seeing visuals in your mind's eye or just getting a stronger sense of knowing. But what it does is it enhances the intuition and it enhances one's spiritual connection to their own soul as well as to the souls of their guides, their ancestors, their loved ones. And it's very powerful, it's very effective. A third technique is intention setting. Setting intentions is one of the most powerful ways, one of the most powerful tools, spiritual tools that we have in our tool belt, that we have at our disposal. Declaring it not only to yourself, but to the spiritual world at large, your spiritual guidance system, your loved ones, your spirit guides, your angels, the masters. And just setting that intention to Creator, setting the intention that you would like to see your life evolve, that you would like to see yourself discover who you are further, that you would like to step further on your spiritual path, on your journey, and to discover who you are. And what happens is there's a response. You put it out there, there's a response. For every action, there's an equal and or opposite reaction. There's a response. And you'll start to see your life unfold in ways that are most beautiful and tremendous and joyful and blissful. You'll start having what's called synchronicity occur in your life, where, like the example that I shared of all the people that suggested that I might be his brother reincarnated, Tecumseh, and the different occurrences between meeting the Reiki practitioner and having the healing energy heal my back. That's synchronicity, and your life will start unfolding in that way where it'll go from the mundane, day-to-day activities, work, home, family, food, sleep, to spiritual unfoldment and evolution and synchronicity and signs. And what happens is you'll start to notice them. They'll be small at first, so they might be very, very in your face, but they'll become more and more frequent. And from there, you can learn how to navigate these signs and these synchronicities. Become a more spiritually advanced individual, or more spiritually aware individual, I should say. And probably the last technique that I would share is do something like have a reading done, or do something like have some type of intuitive healing work done as well. Because what it does, at least what it did for me, is it opened my eyes to something that was there all along. but that I wasn't open enough to in that moment, or wasn't exposed to prior to that moment, to what's right in front of us. You know, whether it's seeing things about what's going on within you internally, or seeing the future, or seeing the past, connecting the loved ones that have crossed over. It's powerful, and it can be life-changing. You know, it's very impactful. And expand on that. Allow yourself to become involved with that, and become an active participant, and not just a bystander. I think that's something that people oftentimes fall victim to, is being a bystander in the spiritual evolution of the world, where it's like, well, that's outside of me, that's not part of me, that's outside of me, it's something that I can observe or witness, but it's not part of me. But we all play a role in this great unfoldment, this spiritual evolution that is going on. We're all interconnected, we're all intertwined, whether we're physically here or not. So it's a matter of tapping into that. But that's mostly what I have. I wanted to go ahead and just open up now. Does anybody have any questions about what I've shared, or anything that they'd like to comment about what I've shared? No?
I have a question.
Okay.
Can you share with us one of your examples where there was a profound difference in their physical or mental or spiritual life?
Sure. From the healing work, or from the reading? From the healing work? Okay. The first one that came to my mind, I actually had a woman who had, it's either TMJ or TJM. It's a jaw pain that she had, since she was a child. And I did a group healing session, and which is basically where there's like a bunch of people together, and I hold my hands out and administer the healing for about an hour, working with everybody that is present. And she had like jaw pain constantly. And the jaw pain went away, and I talked to her, I guess maybe like 2 months later, and she told me that, I think it was either 6 or 8 weeks, she had no pain at all in her jaw. It had completely gone away. But every day, she kept focusing on like, well, this is crazy. Like, why is it gone? Like, how is it gone? I can't believe this. She kept focusing on the negative aspects of it. And she told me after like 6 or 8 weeks, that it came back a little bit, like slightly, but it was due to her focusing on the idea that it was focusing on the idea of the pain, but it was effective enough that for that 6 or 8 weeks, she felt no pain. Another example would be, I had a client that had sprained their ankle 3 times within like a week and a half. Terrible pain. Couldn't walk, was on crutches, had their ankle wrapped. These are 2 physical examples, so I'll give a spiritual example as well. And I worked on him, and the pain subsided and went away, and he was able to walk lightly on his ankle after that session. Sometimes it takes 1 session, sometimes it's multiple sessions, just depends on the being. Another example, I worked with a woman who is a psychic, and she was dealing with like a lot of like spiritual pain within her heart, in her heart center, her heart chakra, and I worked on her, and she described her experience was beautiful. I mean, just so beautiful. And she described how she felt the energy like wrap around her like a tapestry and permeate her being, and she felt all that energy released from her heart chakra, from her heart, and she saw it rise out. And she said she heard the words, "You're now free." And she went on after that, and just so clear, described, she got, like, masters showed up, and her spirit guides showed up, and, all kinds of things. And she was getting messages. It was all very, very powerful. She's been good since then. And that's a spiritual example. And, people with anxiety as well is very good for, or stress. I mean, just really good to just get rid of. So, does that answer your question? Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome.
I have a question.
Yes.
I think during the beginning you said that you got connected with spirits. So why do people need to get connected with spirits?
Okay. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think people need to get connected with spirits. I don't think it's necessary. Because the thing is, everybody's going through a different walk. Everybody's on a different path. the key is to become more spiritual and more spiritually connected, but everybody has a different path at a different time, and everybody's on a different part of their path and in their journey. Some people live a very non-spiritual life, and that may be what they're supposed to be doing in this specific lifetime. Different lifetimes hold different lessons, so it's not absolutely essential to get connected with the spirits. But one thing that's very beneficial for getting connected with spirits, or spirit, I should say. I'd say spirit as an overarching theme or idea of the spiritual realm on the light aspect of things, is being able to be connected to our genealogy, our ancestry, because whether we realize it or not, we all have spirit guides. Our ancestors are all around us, guiding us, and it's easier to go ahead and get connected and be aware of that, because whether we realize it or not, just on a karma level, karmically, the things that we're doing in our life, in our lifetime now, is helping to heal karma from your family in the past, as well as for them to grow and evolve as individuals through your growth and evolution, and vice versa. So that's just two very positive ways, as well as just being more connected with our guidance. It doesn't come down to money, but every extremely wealthy individual, I would say billionaire and beyond, has some type of spiritual connection. Has some type of spiritual practice that they practice that keeps them in tune, or that they'll attribute a lot of what they know into their success to. It doesn't come down to that. I'm just giving it as a vein, or as an example, an avenue. That is one avenue of money. But another one would be, say, just growth or detachment. Detachment from vanity. That's on the exact opposite end of the spectrum. That is a spiritual practice that, that being connected to spirit definitely helps with and enables us to do better. So, I'll go here in a moment. Yes.
I would like to add something to that, if that's okay, respectfully. When you choose not to admit that you're a spiritual being, what you are doing is in fact becoming dormant. Look at a chessboard, for example. If we are all pawns, and there are great spiritual beings around us, which they might be the horsemen, they might be the king or the queen. These people are moving from one side to the other. Maybe that's crossing over. Maybe once you get to the other side, you've reached the other side. But as you sit there dormant as a pawn, these things you will be removed almost. You will go to sleep, literally. When somebody says something wise, you will fall asleep if you are not in tune with what is going on around you. That is what I had to say.
Absolutely, and just commenting on that, there's the idea that many are called, few are chosen. Everybody's called. Virtually everybody's called. Few people actually accept. And that's what it comes down to. We're called to reach spiritual heights, to detach from vanity, to evolve as individuals, and we're given this opportunity to play a role, an active role, in the spiritual evolution of the planet and of ourselves, of everybody else. We don't have to accept, we don't have to choose that, but like you were saying, if we go to sleep, we'll miss the boat, so to speak, and we don't get to play an active role within all of that. So, which is quite unfortunate, because there's also having to come back and learn the same lessons over again, or the cycles of lessons that you learn within one lifetime can be daunting, until we learn it. So, absolutely, yes.
You talked about ancestors being around, spirits being around, but does it mean that they haven't taken rebirths? But they haven't.
No. I'm glad you brought that up. So, in regards to ancestors and rebirths, a lot of times they are reborn. Well, most times they are, and they come back. That doesn't mean that frequency isn't still able to be accessed from that ancestor, or from those ancestors. That frequency can still be accessed. It's like, not always, but in most cases, at least in my personal experience, when I've done readings for people that I've known to have reincarnated, I can still connect to that frequency of that spirit in that space. So yes, they can be reborn and still be accessed, but at the same time, they can still, their soul could be reborn in a physical being, in a physical body. Are there any other questions?
I have a question. You mentioned about the spiritual movement, evolutions about happening right now,
Yes.
and so what's your reading about the current state of humanity and where we are going? And if you can, I'm curious to see what role this place has in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Meditation.
Yeah, sure.
Center.
Okay. As far as the evolution that's going on the planet right now, what's taking place in humanity, I think that we're at a very important time in humanity where I think humanity as a whole, whether they realize it or not, has chosen to take the higher route and go towards the light, seek the light to bring it here, to bring it on earth. That's why there's this wonderful center that's here. That's why there's centers like this in different parts of the world. I mean, even in America, just thinking about America, the Western world. There are people that are becoming much more interested in spirituality. And I say alternative spirituality, even though it's not alternative spirituality, it's the original spirituality that has resurfaced, and because it's resurfaced in a major way, people are calling it alternative because it's the alternate from the norm. I think that, just from my perspective, we are going towards the light, and that people are receiving gifts of different kinds, whether it's spiritual gifts or other types of gifts, painting, art, different types of gifts that are being used to exemplify Creator within all things and help people to realize that we are in this together as a whole, and that there's no such thing as separation, that there's no such thing as duality, that there's only oneness, but through the brokenness of the frame that humans see through, we buy into duality, we buy into separation. And so we're coming back to unity consciousness, oneness, that is attained through letting go of duality and attained through letting go of false senses of self, the false ego, and shedding the ego, and coming to a place of love in oneness. The second part of your question, I see the center growing, at least here, I see the center growing, and I see it expanding beyond here as well. Different parts of Virginia, as well as, I just see it growing. I don't see anything negative happening in that aspect of things. 2017 will be a good year for the center, especially towards, I don't know if there's something new, like a new program that you're planning, or a new like addition to what you're doing, but I see it growing in 2017, like in the beginning, like January, February. I see like a new program or new programs being introduced at the center, or at least continued or grown. Is there a new program that you're working on here at the center?
Like friends.
We're trying to introduce the trainings and
We're trying to introduce a program called Brighter Minds.
Brighter Minds.
Oh, awesome.
For young children.
Young children.
Awesome, yeah.
And that is one of the programs where we've heard that children are also developing ability
Right.
while they can read the books while closing their eyes.
Oh, yeah.
They're super bright, that's why it's called Brighter
Right.
Minds. So when the children go through those programs, they develop ultimate abilities.
Right. Right, exactly.
We have,
When, do you know when that's going to start?
It starts as soon as we legally settle everything.
Right,
The
okay.
entity is formed.
Right,
It is around the January time frame when we'll start. And it's all about midbrain activity.
right, absolutely.
So super conscious.
Super conscious,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, absolutely.
Ages 5 to 15.
5 to 15. Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. I see, it looks like, yeah, I see like new programs basically being introduced here and them growing, And then it looks like towards summer as well, there may be some type of event, like some type of spiritual fair or event like that, spring, summer, then maybe even again in the fall. I definitely in the fall, there being like some type of showcase, some type of event. They'll be very successful, and I think it'll get news coverage as well on like local media. So that's what I'm seeing for the center, and I think things are just going to grow. I see it growing. So
So one of the things which is, I always feel passionate about is, and I always wanted to do, most of our volunteers were doing this, is how can we make the system or the methods of spiritual growth available to every single being around here,
Right,
especially in Virginia, because that's what we hear.
right,
And that's what we are trying to see the pointers of what can we improve on,
right,
what we should be doing,
right,
so that we can do that faster, because our masters are also saying, we don't have time,
right,
we have to move so fast
right,
and make this available as fast as we can, because we're in a different time zone, different dimensions.
right.
So what do you see us doing, what we should be doing?
Right, well, the first thing that came up when you asked that question is, do you have a newsletter that you're sending out?
We are working on it.
Yes.
We
Okay,
are-
okay, because I'm seeing a newsletter, that's what I was seeing, like, or that's what I'm seeing is a newsletter. That's gonna be very, very helpful and very successful in that aspect of things. Also, different events, I think, the newsletter is the biggest thing that's coming up in my mind's eye, my psychic sight, is something that looks like it'll help significantly, as well as